Parker Schnabel, once the rising young star of Gold Rush and hailed as the youngest prodigy to extract millions from the frozen ground, is no longer commanding an excavator. Instead, he now sits behind bars, the result of a shocking verdict in what has become one of the most startling environmental scandals in modern mining history. His once thriving gold mining empire has come to a dead stop, ending with a life sentence, no parole, no remaining appeals. This is the same Parker who began his journey by pouring his college fund into mining, uncovering over $13 million in gold by age 24, and transforming his gritty work into reality TV gold. In season 14 alone, he earned $24 million. But now, his recent $16 million in assets is frozen, his Dominion Creek claims are under investigation, and fans are left asking, how did the industry's most focused and hard-working miner end up in prison? From the beginning, Parker was no stranger to pressure. Starting his mining career in his teens, he had already amassed a fortune in his early 20s. By the time season 14 aired, his operation was bringing in millions. With gold prices at record highs, season 15 seemed like the perfect opportunity to soar even higher. But instead of reaping rewards, Parker found himself on the edge of financial ruin and personal breakdown. Somewhere between ambition and legacy, he made a critical decision, one that would alter the course of his life. From that point forward, things spiraled into legal turmoil. Going into the new season, Parker set an ambitious goal, to mine 10,000 ounces of gold, worth over $26 million at market value. Achieving it would require more than dedication, it would demand scale, speed, and a flawless operation. In pursuit of this goal, Parker made a bold and controversial move, spending $2.5 million on two mining claims, Gold Run and Sulphur Creek. These weren't just any claims, they were among the Klondike's most profitable, historically yielding $1.5 billion in gold. However, the plots came with challenges: previously worked ground, unstable terrain, and unclear legal status. Nevertheless, Parker pushed forward with total commitment. To jumpstart Sulphur Creek, Parker ordered his most powerful wash plant, Bob, to be relocated, a 25-meter haul, the longest his crew had ever attempted, with only 10 hours to do it. Despite the impossible timeline, the crew pulled it off. Mechanics worked overtime to fix machinery, Tyson Lee managed intense logistics, and Bob came back online. For a short while, it all paid off. In just 4 days, Bob produced over 290 ounces of gold, valued at $766,000. Combined with 276 ounces from other cuts, the team surpassed the 6,000-ounce mark, translating to $16 million in gold. It looked like the risk had paid off. But as the team dug deeper at Dominion Creek and Bridge Cut, problems mounted. Equipment failures, compliance issues, and regulatory warnings grew. Big Red, the aging wash plant that had helped generate over $53 million in gold, finally broke down for good after 12 seasons. Its tension bars snapped, shutting the plant down. With only Bob and Roxanne remaining, there was no margin for error, and soon, errors began to surface. Behind the scenes, a legal crisis was unfolding. In the rush to meet the season's goal, Parker had made hasty deals, some of which bypassed environmental reviews. He acquired nearby claims through private contracts, ignoring the necessary assessments. As soon as operations began at Sulphur Creek, questions poured in about permits, protected waterways, and buried fuel tanks. Many answers were vague or non-existent. Warning signs were subtle at first, delayed inspections and low-key visits from regulators. But as the team worked non-stop, disturbing thousands of yards of gravel through sensitive areas, the warnings escalated into subpoenas. Then came the hammer blow, federal charges alleging major environmental violations. These weren't minor technicalities. They included illegal dredging, destruction of federally protected streams, and negligent waste disposal, all stemming from that $2.5 million land grab. Investigators uncovered troubling evidence: missing permits, unauthorized site changes, and even forged inspection documents allegedly signed by subcontractors under Parker's instruction. The show stopped being about gold, it turned into a legal thriller. Prosecutors accused Parker of intentionally violating the law in pursuit of his 10,000-ounce target. They alleged he dismissed concerns, cut corners, and prioritized profits over regulations. In court, the numbers were damning: 68 violations, $3.1 million in unauthorized work, soil contamination, and more than 8,000 gallons of missing hydraulic fluid. Parker's defense team tried to deflect blame, suggesting subcontractor errors and paperwork delays were at fault. But the prosecution revealed internal emails, one of which showed Parker telling his team to continue working and ignore agency interference. That message reappeared several times, each instance deepening the courtroom's silence. The turning point came when a former crew member, who had left mid-season, testified that Parker had been warned multiple times about lacking documentation and environmental risks but proceeded anyway. The narrative shifted from negligence to willful misconduct. The fallout was swift and crushing. The charges multiplied: environmental abuse, property destruction, forged reports, and reckless digging on federal land. It wasn't a single bad decision but a series of calculated moves. Prosecutors described it as an intentional disregard for environmental law. When obstruction was added to the list, Parker's legal standing collapsed. The court delivered a harsh verdict, citing the extreme environmental damage his actions caused. The sentencing guidelines were strict, and even seasoned legal observers were stunned. Yet, there was a strange omission: despite the sentence, the term prison was never publicly used. There was no dramatic arrest, no mugshot, no televised takedown. Parker simply vanished from public view. Speculation ran wild: some believed he was negotiating restitution, others thought he might be in protective custody. But no one knew for sure, and the silence surrounding his disappearance said more than any statement. This was Parker Schnabel, the Discovery Channel wunderkind who had started mining as a teenager, unearthed $13 million in gold by 24, and led 8 spin-offs, including Parker's Trail. In season 14 alone, he generated a jaw-dropping $24 million. Now, he's disappeared: no interviews, no farewells. And strangely, for someone who made millions, Parker was never known for flashy excess. He didn't live like a celebrity: no luxury mansions, no collection of designer cars. At the peak of his fame, he admitted to sleeping on a friend's couch in Los Angeles. His spending habits reflected his values: memories over materialism. He invested in experiences: father-son trips, hunting weekends with his crew, World Series tickets, and impromptu getaways to Las Vegas. For him, it was never about wealth. It was about loyalty and shared moments. That philosophy was rooted in his upbringing. His great-grandfather forged a life in the Alaskan wilderness, later joined by his grandmother in 1937. His father still rises at 4:30 every morning to work. Parker grew up around people who didn't quit, who worked through hardship and persevered through the toughest conditions. That legacy shaped who he was and made his sudden fall all the more difficult to watch. He once spent an entire summer working alongside his grandfather, sharing dinners and listening to stories passed down through generations. He later confessed he wished he had recorded those moments. To him, those memories were more valuable than any amount of gold. Parker understood from an early age that money doesn't last, but legacy does. And now, that legacy is on shaky ground. Season 15 was supposed to mark his triumphant return, a defining chapter where he'd achieve 10,000 ounces and leave the competition in the dust. Instead, it turned into what many call a cursed season. Equipment malfunctions, permit issues, and a string of legal battles plagued the operation. Despite his relentless efforts to stay focused and push harder, faster, and smarter, it wasn't enough. The pressure caught up with him, and something gave way. No one knows what's next. The $16 million he earned this season is now entangled in legal reviews. Mining claims have been suspended, and his crew has dispersed. While some remain silent, others try to keep the operation afloat. But without Parker, the heart of the team, everything feels unstable. Dominion Creek represented Parker's biggest gamble. Unlike previous ventures where he leased land, this time he bought it outright. No rent, no royalty payments, but full responsibility. He paid $15 million upfront in a single non-refundable transaction just to secure the site. The challenge? The gold wasn't anywhere near the surface. It lay buried more than 40 feet deep, demanding a massive investment in machinery, labor, fuel, and time. On paper, the decision was brilliant. Dominion was estimated to contain 80,000 ounces of gold, worth about $160 million at current prices. To Parker, Dominion wasn't just another mine. It was the future. He envisioned pulling 10,000 ounces annually over 6 seasons to reach that goal. That was the plan, the roadmap. But time wasn't on his side. His permits and water licenses had only 6 years left, with no guarantee of renewal. If regulatory bodies didn't extend the licenses, whatever gold remained underground would be lost forever. So Parker did what he always does, he bet everything. His crew moved millions of yards of earth, 25 million bank yards over the claim's lifespan. That volume expanded to nearly 30 million yards when processed. The pace was relentless. The workload was grueling. Machinery broke down, workers wore thin, deadlines slipped, and the pressure, it affected everyone. Tyson, Lee, Mitch, Blask, the whole team felt the weight of the operation. Because this wasn't a lease claim. There was no safety net. Every hour of downtime drained money. Every missed ounce was lost revenue. For Parker, failure simply wasn't an option. Not after the $15 million investment, not with the ticking clock on permits, and not when so many livelihoods depended on his success. Rewind to where it all began, Parker never took the safe route. From his debut on Gold Rush, Alaska in 2010, he distinguished himself from other miners. While others bought flashy gear and toys, he zeroed in on land strategy and crew dynamics. By 24, he had already brought in $13 million in gold. By season 14, he hit $24 million, and his journey had taken viewers across the Klondike, Oregon, Colorado, and even the jungles of Anna. He was tireless, calculated, and resilient. But in season 15, the stakes and the stress rose dramatically. Dominion was transformative, but so was the burden. Parker admitted that his biggest fear wasn't losing money, it was losing his crew. Downsizing meant cutting loose the very people who had helped him rise. He'd rather sacrifice profits than abandon them. That's why he chose to scale up instead of pulling back. He acquired more land, grew operations, and even signed a royalty agreement with Metallic Minerals, securing exclusive mining rights to a 12-kilometer stretch of Australia Creek. That contract alone included a $1 million annual minimum and royalty payments for every ounce extracted. Now, alongside Dominion, he was running a second major project under the Little Flake mining umbrella. The expansion was rapid, and the stakes were massive. As Parker put it, he didn't want anyone on the crew who couldn't handle pressure. If someone couldn't keep pace, they were out. No excuses, no second chances. With long-term prospects valued at over $200 million, the standards were higher than ever. But the larger the operation, the smaller the margin for error. Equipment failures, bad weather, production shortfalls, each setback compounded. Tensions escalated, and the pressure spilled over into relationships. That season, Parker and Rick Ness barely crossed paths. In fact, they saw each other only twice over the entire summer. Their only substantial conversation happened on camera, and it was about a difficult situation. Rick had his own challenges, but beyond that, he and Parker operated in different lanes. The same could be said for Tony Beets. Years ago, Parker and Tony used to clash constantly, battling over permits, land, and royalty payments. But this time around, they kept their distance. A few friendly coffees behind the scenes were all they shared. There was no longer a debt between them. Parker owned his ground, held his permits, and wasn't writing royalty checks anymore. That meant fewer arguments, but also less connection. And that loss of connection had consequences. When the pressure at Dominion began to mount, Parker didn't have much outside support. He was all in, head down, focused, doing whatever it took to stay afloat. At the same time, he remained committed to his public ventures. He finalized a major deal with Metallic Minerals, pressed forward on a 400-hole drill program, and in 2022, received the Robert E. Leckie Award from the Yukon government for environmental stewardship, just 2 years before his operation came under legal scrutiny. That's how quickly the mining world can turn. One season, you're collecting awards. And the next, you're under investigation. Off the job, Parker was as grounded as ever. He wasn't living lavishly in mansions or flying on private jets. One week he'd be surfing couches in LA, the next in Mexico or the Bahamas. He kiteboards, snowmobiles, and spends his winters on snowbikes when they're not breaking down. He never flaunted wealth. He was always on the move, always chasing the next challenge. And maybe that's part of the issue. While people questioned how a guy in his 20s could earn $13 million by age 24, Parker was already reinvesting, taking bigger risks, buying new claims, not from a skyscraper office, but 40 feet underground at Dominion Creek, where one bad decision could sink an entire season. By 2024, Parker's estimated net worth ranged from $8 million to $10 million. Still, it surprised many, especially considering his decade-long run as the face of a top-rated Discovery Channel series. He didn't wear high-end watches or collect exotic cars. He didn't even own much real estate. The only documented property was a modest home in Haines, Alaska, 2,000 square feet, built in 2015, with a wood frame and metal roof, tucked away on a quiet lake. It was far from flashy. At one point, rumors spread that he bought a $950,000 mansion, but he denied it outright. Said he was homeless and preferred crashing on friends' couches. For most people, that wouldn't sound believable. But with Parker, it added up. This is the same guy who spent his entire college fund betting on himself. While other teenagers picked dorm rooms, Parker was choosing rock formations and buying permits. His $17 million gamble on Dominion Creek wasn't his first. It was just the biggest, boldest, and riskiest. That land wasn't easy gold, it was buried deep, 40 feet beneath frozen soil. To make it viable, he'd need to move 30 million bank yards of dirt over 6 years, over 5 million yards annually, without pause. And it wasn't just about the equipment. It was about the people, the pace, the pressure. Dominion wasn't a mine. It was a gold-hungry beast, and Parker was the only one ready to tame it. Even as gold prices surged, he didn't slow down. He went all in, expanded his crew, upgraded his gear, and secured royalty deals with metallic minerals to mine Australia Creek. He prepaid royalties and committed to $1 million in annual work. He wasn't just digging for gold. He was building an empire. And the effort didn't stop in the Yukon. Parker went global: Guyana, Papua New Guinea, Alaska, Australia, Brazil. From the Klondike to the jungle, glaciers to rainforests. While other teams shut down for winter, he was halfway around the globe filming Parker's trail, digging where few dared, navigating languages he didn't speak, braving bugs, landslides, and altitude sickness. At 16,000 feet in the Andes, altitude sickness left him flat. Still, he pushed forward. And through all of it, the cameras kept rolling. Between Gold Rush, Parker's trail, streaming rights, merchandise, and sponsorships, his $2,500 per episode salary added up fast. Reports suggest his total earnings topped $4 million per year, factoring in mining profits and TV deals. His crew also earned well, between $10,000 and $25,000 per episode. It was a money-making machine. But here's the catch: despite the millions, the fame, and the spotlight, Parker was never really chasing money. He was chasing legacy. He wanted to honor his grandfather, protect his team, and prove that a kid from small-town Alaska could take on the toughest industry in the world, and win. That's why this moment stings more than expected. Because this isn't a scandal involving some fame-hungry star. This is Parker Schnabel, the kid who came up in the dirt, who never gave up, who built a dynasty with a backhoe and a loyal crew. And now, it's all on hold. His $16 million haul from the latest season, frozen. His Dominion claims, under legal review. His royalty mines, silent. His future, uncertain. Discovery is still airing season 15 episodes, but the elephant in the room looms large. No one's saying it aloud, but everyone feels it. The big question now is, does Parker bounce back stronger than ever, or has the golden run come to an end?